On the eve of the art troupe selection in 1979, I was kidnapped and abandoned in a deserted brick kiln in the suburbs. That night, my leg was broken, and I was molested. Before I could even resist, I had lost all dignity. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. The overwhelming smell of disinfectant making my scalp tingle, the cold beneath me and the searing pain left me on the verge of madness. I can't open my eyes, only hearing the rain outside, that familiar voice, low and hoarse. Each word like a nail hammered into my chest. Is she awake yet? Dad, I beg you, let me see her. I'm begging you. Orion G. He knelt outside for 3 days and nights, his knees torn to shreds. You unfilial son, how dare you show your face here? His father kicked him to the ground. For a woman with a heart as venomous as a snake, look at the mess you've made. Tearfully, he said to his father, it's not Nola's fault, it was all my idea. I'll marry Lyra, and even if her legs are broken, I'll support her for the rest of my life. A sharp slap rang out. G's father kicked him to the ground, screaming with heart-wrenching fury, you're something, aren't you, keeping a mistress, hiring people to kidnap your own fiancée, forcing her to, how dare you bear the G name? If she doesn't wake up, you'll kneel here until you die. I heard it all too clearly. Forcing her. I didn't tell them to. My eyes were closed, but my heart grew colder inch by inch. Those once said vows of take me home and protect me for a lifetime now sound more nauseating than last night's nightmare. I died, perished in Orion G's tearful remorse. When I opened my eyes again, I was in the cramped little room of my rural home, with the matchmaker standing by the bed, smiling as she sized me up. Lyra, the G family has really come to propose marriage. What luck you have. Orion is now an educated youth, and by year's end he can take you back to the city with him. I froze. This is 3 months before the selection for the performance troupe in the year of my accident. I've been reborn. The matchmaker, beaming with joy, was still holding my hand and trying to persuade me. Originally, with both your parents gone, everyone pitied you, but you're actually quite fortunate. See. Your father's old friend G personally sent me to propose on his behalf. You two grew up together, and now he insists on marrying you and taking you home. I abruptly threw off the quilt and rushed to the backyard, just as someone appeared at the village entrance, dressed in military green uniform, neat and composed, with sharp, cool features and a duffel bag on his back. It was Zane Shu, the son of my father's comrade-in-arms. I dashed over and grabbed his arm. Zane Shu. Will you marry me? He froze for a moment, his voice low and steady. Me, I nodded, my voice trembling but resolute. Yes, I can dance, I can perform to earn money. If you're willing to marry me, I promise, I'll never interfere with anything you do, never hold you back. After a moment of silence, he suddenly smiled and said, all right, I'll marry you. Lyra, come back quickly, the G family has come to propose marriage. Inside the house, Mrs. G sat upright in the front hall, while the matchmaker couldn't stop smiling. Oh my, with an in-law family like yours, Lyra's fortune must have been cultivated over 8 lifetimes. The door was flung open with a bang. Orion G stood in the center, wearing a faded shirt. Seeing me enter, he immediately rose to his feet and smiled gently. Lyra, I've come to take you home. This voice was my favorite in my past life. Now, hearing it only brings irony. I stepped into the house, followed by Zane Shu, his military uniform impeccably neat and dust-free, the epaulets on his shoulders gleaming so brightly in the sunlight that it was hard to look at. The matchmaker called out to me. Lyra, where have you been? The G family has already arrived. Look, they're so serious about this. I glanced at Orion G and spoke coldly. This marriage, I won't agree to it. G's mother stiffened. Lyra, what did you just say? I said, I won't marry Orion G, I've fallen for someone else. Step by step, I walked up to Orion G and sneered. He's not worthy. Her mother's expression darkened. You were betrothed to each other since childhood. Are you trying to go back on your word now? He frowned and quickly took a step closer. Lyra, did I do something wrong? Tell me, and I'll change. I took a step back, looking at him with disgust in my eyes. I've changed my heart. Orion G froze, murmuring in repetition, changed your heart? Yes, I've fallen for someone else. I said this without blushing or my heart racing, even with a hint of a smile at the corners of my lips, as I looked at Zane Shu. I want to marry him. Orion G was stunned. Who is he? I walked over and took the hand of the man standing outside the door. Soldier Zane Shu, my fiancé. I turned around, raising our intertwined fingers to face the shock in the room. This is the person I chose myself, not forced by anyone, nor arranged by anyone. I fell in love at first sight. The light in Orion G's eyes shattered piece by piece. Didn't you say you hated soldiers the most? You were afraid of suffering with them, changing careers, moving cities. I smiled, yes. But later I realized, it wasn't that I hated soldiers, it was that I hadn't met the one I loved. G's mother was furious. How could you treat Orion like this? Everyone in the village knows how good he's been to you. Good to me. I raised an eyebrow. So I don't deserve better. Listen up, G family. This wedding is off today. I'm marrying Zane Shu. From now on, I have nothing to do with the G family. The room fell silent in an instant. Even the matchmaker was caught off guard. Mother G was the first to jump up. My son loves you so much. How dare you say such nonsense? I didn't even glance at her, keeping my eyes fixed on Orion G's. They were filled with sorrow. Good. The wind picked up at night, making the windows creak. I got up to close them, and just as I latched the window, a low call came from outside the courtyard gate. Lyra, it's me. I froze. The voice was so gentle, like an echo pulled from a dream. I draped on my coat and tiptoed out of the house. The courtyard gate creaked, and in the night, Orion G's figure stood motionless outside, as if he had been waiting for a long time. He was wearing a thin shirt, the wind tousling his hair, his eyes bloodshot. Are you really going to marry that Shu guy? I didn't answer. He gave a bitter smile. I haven't eaten or slept these past 2 days. My mind is filled with thoughts of you. You said you won't marry me anymore, and that you like someone else. I don't believe it, Lyra. You're not that kind of person. He took a step forward, reaching out to touch me. I frowned and stepped back. You're afraid of me. Orion G's hand froze mid-air, his voice suddenly dropping low. I don't mean anything else. I just want to ask clearly, do you still have me in your heart at all? At these words, a string in my chest was gently plucked. In my past life, he never overstepped boundaries. During those years I spent in the countryside, he took great care of me, often bringing me food and drink, and even taking me to town to have new clothes made. I had thought his feelings for me were genuine. But after returning to the city, he fell in love at first sight with Nola Cheng. He hurt me, betrayed me, and led me to my death. I looked at him coldly. Orion G, get out of here. I don't want to see you, Lyra. He suddenly took a step forward. A clean, slender hand abruptly blocked my path. Didn't you hear her tell you to leave? Zane Shu stood by my side, having arrived unnoticed at some point. His grey-blue military uniform was darkened by the night, and though his voice wasn't loud, it carried an edge that couldn't be suppressed. Orion G's expression changed abruptly. Mind your own business, she's my fiancée. Zane Shu uttered these 5 words lightly, his tone not heavy, yet it felt like a slap across Orion G's face. I held onto Zane Shu's arm. Ignore him, let's go home. He froze for a moment, then looked at me. Lyra, you're defending him just like that. We grew up together, and you changed your heart so easily. Meeting his gaze, my voice was gentle but unwavering. Yes, I've changed my heart. If you had treated me this tenderly and protected me like this a few years earlier, I might have softened. But now it's different. My heart belongs to Zane Shu. Leave, Orion G. Don't disturb my peace anymore. Orion G seemed as if all his strength had been drained. He stood there dazed for a few breaths, then suddenly lowered his head with a faint smile. You've really changed. You never used to talk to me like this before. He shot a hateful glance at Zane Shu, muttered something under his breath, then turned and walked away. The wind brushed past my clothes, bringing a chill with it. Zane Shu stood motionless by my side. After a long pause, he finally asked softly, "Are you cold?" I shook my head and suddenly realized my fingers were ice cold. The next moment, a large hand gently grasped mine. Dry, broad, warm. "I'm here," he whispered in a low voice, despite the lingering chill of early spring. The village entrance was bustling with activity. The matchmaker's grin nearly split her face. Our village's Miss Shin, her fortune is truly on the rise. Firecrackers crackled and popped. While red cloth strips hung brightly at the doorway, dazzling to the eyes, Zain-Shu stood beside me in his military uniform, handsome and upright. The new fine cloth clothes his mother had sent over also arrived, fitting perfectly. In the crowd, someone whispered quietly, "Wasn't she engaged to the Ji family? Why has it changed? Just look at the groom and you'll understand. His family background is streets ahead of the Ji family." Listening to these remarks, my expression remained unchanged. But out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a familiar figure in the distance. Orion Ji has arrived. He stood at the back of the crowd, wearing an old woolen coat, his face pale, staring intently at my hand clasped with Zain-Shu's as if he could bore a hole through us with his gaze. The engagement banquet was set up at the village's community center, and all the men, young and old, came to celebrate. Zain-Shu raised his glass to toast the village chief. "Uncle, rest assured. I will take care of Lyra for the rest of her life." Turning back from the feast, I saw Orion Ji standing at the alley's entrance, his eyes hollow. I met his gaze, linked arms with Zain-Shu, and chuckled softly. "Let's go, it's time we prepared to enter the city." On the day we headed into the city, a light drizzle fell steadily. Zain-Shu held an umbrella to shield me as I got into the car, then wrapped the old cotton coat around me. "It's cold over there. Don't let yourself freeze," he said. He didn't say much along the way, only sharing the dry rations and water flask with me. Occasionally glancing back to check if I had fallen asleep, I leaned against the window, watching the village grow increasingly distant. Yet strangely, I felt no trace of nostalgia in my heart. In my past life, I followed Orion Ji and ended up without even the chance to audition for the cultural troupe, dying pitifully in that small hospital. By the time the train pulled into the station, the sky had cleared. On the platform stood a middle-aged couple, the woman in a navy blue wool coat, the man wearing a military cap, his face stern with authority. "Mom, Dad," Zain-Shu called out. I followed with, "Hello, Uncle and Auntie. You look so much alike, truly." Father Shu's eyes grew slightly moist when he saw me. "Good child. You've suffered." His father then gave Zain-Shu a kick in the rear. "You brat, I told you to bring your girlfriend home, and instead you tricked Lyra into coming. You haven't been bullying her, have you?" Zain-Shu's usually stern face flushed with embarrassment. "I wasn't bullying her. Let the father and son have a good talk." Mother Shu stepped forward, took my hand, and smiled at me. "Come, dear girl, everything at home is ready. Auntie will take you home." The family quarters were located in the military logistics compound, neat and orderly. Mother Shu specially cleared out the east room for me and even laid out her own fine cotton quilt that she had kept from years past. Dinner was a pot of pickled cabbage stew with vermicelli, served with steaming white buns. Just to my taste, I was enjoying the meal when Mrs. Shu suddenly spoke up. "Lyra, when do you and Zain plan to get married?" I froze, nearly dropping my chopsticks. Zain-Shu clenched his fist and coughed. "Mom, don't scare her like that," Mother Shu insisted. "I'm not rushing you. I just genuinely adore Lyra. Don't worry, if she truly becomes part of our family, I won't let her suffer the slightest hardship, not even you. No one would be allowed to mistreat her. She truly liked me." Her eyes filled with maternal affection. Zain-Shu lowered his head, turning his back to his parents, and whispered to me, "I don't mean anything else by it. If you're not ready to marry so soon, I'll wait for you." A sudden pang of emotion hit me, and I lowered my head to reply, "Let Zain make the arrangements. I'll follow his lead." At night, the wind whispered hoarsely, and wrapped in my blanket, I suddenly couldn't sleep. Zain-Shu knocked lightly on the door. "Are you awake?" I murmured a soft millimeter. He stood outside the door, holding a cup of warm milk. "I thought you might be having trouble sleeping due to the change in climate, so I brought you something." I took the cup, and the moment my fingers touched his, an indescribable emotion welled up in my heart. Zain-Shu looked at me and suddenly said in a low voice, "Lyra, I don't know why you chose me either. Anyway, you don't have to rush to accept me. I don't want anything from you. Just know that I can protect you, that's all." My voice was slightly hoarse as I asked, "Why did you agree to me?" Then, He smiled, his lips red and teeth white. Actually, I've known about you for a long time. I've seen you dance before. It was beautiful. I froze, looking up to meet his gaze. His eyes were calm, yet carried an undeniable warmth. At that moment, no more words were needed. Suddenly, I felt that even if the road ahead is stormy, it would be worth starting over. Not long after, news spread in the city. A young and promising cadre named Orion G., gentle and refined, had been newly assigned to the railway division. At the welcome assembly, the division arranged performances to liven up the event. It was said that the female employee Nola Cheng, dressed in a white gauze skirt, performed a solo dance. As she turned, her eyes met Orion G's in the audience. After that night, rumors about the two began to circulate. When I heard about it, I just smiled faintly. Her little tricks were crystal clear to me in my past life. At the break of dawn, I got up to wash and saw Zain Shu coming out of another room, holding my wash basin. I called out to him, "Zain, are you eating?" Watching him lower his head and nervously slip into the study, I felt somewhat puzzled and quickly followed. "Dad, I want to talk to you about something." Zain Shu stood respectfully in front of his father, his gaze firm. "Speak." Father Shu set down the newspaper in his hands, his brow slightly furrowed. "Lyra has a great talent for the arts. I want her to join the cultural troupe to study performance. As you know, that troupe is a key part of our military's cultural outreach. If she gets in, she can learn some skills and secure her future." After a moment of silence, Father Shu sighed and said, "This matter isn't easy to discuss. The spots in the cultural troupe are limited, and they're selective. What do you plan to do?" Zain Shu looked serious as he replied, "I want to ask someone to help with the procedures and try to give her a chance. Lyra has good potential and is willing to work hard. I believe she can make it." A hint of approval flashed in his father's eyes, but he remained stern. "Even children from military families can't just coast by. Since you've set your mind on her, we'll do our best. Go see Deputy Zhong in the troop and explain the situation clearly." Zain Shu nodded solemnly. "Thank you, Dad. I'll make sure this gets done." On the day of signing up for the cultural troupe, the sky was not yet fully bright, but a long queue had already formed at the entrance. Dressed in the new clothes prepared by Shu's mother, with a neat short haircut, I stood in the sunlight like a little cabbage that had just sprung up from the ground, yet with my back straight. "Oh, Shen Lyra," a familiar yet grating voice came from behind. I turned around and saw Nola Cheng. She stood out in the crowd, dressed in a soft pink corduroy coat with a beautiful woolen scarf, her delicate features accentuating her presence. She walked over, her gaze sweeping over me, a faint, cold smile playing on her lips. "I thought you'd be stuck in that village for the rest of your life. Never imagined you'd try to join the cultural troupe." I remained silent, my expression calm. She deliberately took a step closer, lowering her voice. "Weren't you dead set on marrying Orion G? What's this I hear about you cozying up to some officer's son now? TSK, didn't think you had it in you. Quite the climber, aren't you?" I stared at her without responding. She grew more animated as she spoke, her smile turning spiteful. "You think just because you can dance a little, you can get into the performance troupe? Don't be naive. Places like this aren't for just anyone to survive in. When the audition comes, don't go crying back home and make a fool of yourself." I smiled faintly. "Nola Cheng, I remember you were still drying grain at the village entrance a few years ago, your hands all cracked. Now you're dressed to the nines and talking big. Must have latched onto someone." Her expression darkened, and just as she was about to retort, the staff at the registration desk called out, "Next, Shen Lyra." I stepped forward, leaving her standing there grinding her teeth in frustration. The preliminary performance for the cultural troupe was held in the old auditorium, with many government officials and a few military leaders seated in the audience. Dressed in the navy blue practice outfit hand-sewn by Shu's mother, my hair neatly tied back with a headband, I stood backstage, waiting for my number to be called. Nola Cheng stood right in front of me, draped in sheer gauze, casting a mocking glance from the corner of her eye. "That Nanyuan song you chose is too old-fashioned. No one likes to listen to it anymore." I ignored her, merely lowering my head slightly to tighten my belt. She took a step closer, her tone sharp. "Orion G is in the audience today. I'm bound to win. So don't blame me for laughing if you sing off-key. A flicker passed through my eyes, but I only smiled faintly. Thanks for the reminder. But I've always sung only for those who understand. It was her turn to take the stage. The spotlight shone as she danced to the rhythm, her figure undeniably graceful. A segment of Plum Blossom stirred whispers among the audience. After her curtain call, she descended from the side of the stage, looking at me with unwavering confidence. The host announced, "Next up, Shanlyra, performing Nanyuan." I stepped onto the stage and stood before the microphone. The murmurs in the audience gradually faded into silence. The accompaniment began, and with my first clear, resonant line, I opened my mouth. "The flowers in the basket are fragrant, listen as I sing." The voice was pure and bright, firm and resounding, like a mountain stream flowing into the quiet night, or like the morning drum startling a dream. With the song, I began to dance, arms outstretched, as if truly transporting people back to the mountains, where they could see a flower-picking girl singing folk songs with a basket on her back. The veteran carders present couldn't help but nod in approval, while Father Shu in the audience also put away his pipe. Zane Shu stared unblinkingly at my lively figure. As I finished singing and took my bow, the entire hall fell silent for a moment before erupting into thunderous applause. Someone whispered, "Which military unit brought her here?" "No, it seems like she's a young relative of Commander Shu's family." Orion G was also in the audience, staring at me on stage with a complicated gaze, momentarily lost in thought. Meanwhile, Nola Cheng stood backstage, her face pale. Clutching a handkerchief tightly as if she had just been slapped by someone, I joined the cultural troupe, and somehow, Nola Cheng also appeared on the training roster a few days later. Though no one knew what means she had used, rumors had it that Orion G pulled some strings through acquaintances to get her transferred in. I remained expressionless. The earlier a grudge from a past life surfaces, the quicker it meets its end. That day after training, the moment I stepped out of the rehearsal hall, I sensed something amiss from behind. The deputy troop leader called me into the office with a stern face. A letter of complaint lay quietly on the desk. "Shanlyra has issues with her lifestyle, seducing the children of carders and disrupting the troop's atmosphere." I glanced at it, a cold smirk curling at the corner of my lips. I know Nola Cheng's tricks all too well. She doesn't dare to confront me openly, so she resorts to framing me to drag me down. The office door suddenly swung open as Zane Shu entered in military uniform, his brow furrowed. "Who wrote this?" The deputy commander was taken aback. "Advisor Shu." "Well, we're still investigating." Zane Shu didn't even glance at the letter and said sternly, "My fiancé was personally taken by my mother to register as a military dependent. It's clearly written in the official records. One more slanderous word, and I'll treat it as defamation of a military family." The matter was settled with finality. The deputy regiment leader broke into a sweat. "A misunderstanding, just a misunderstanding. We'll clarify this immediately." That same day, the cultural troupe posted a notice stating that the accusation was malicious slander, with no evidence found upon investigation, and the outcome was a public vindication of my innocence. I walked down the hallway and saw Nola Cheng in the corner by the wall. She stopped me and said, "You're so lucky. So many people are willing to protect you. A higher rank can crush anyone." Zane Shu stepped out from behind, his eyes cold. "Lyra is my fiancée. It's only natural that I protect her." She bit her handkerchief fearfully and dared not speak again. Her eyes filled with resentment as she looked at me. I glanced at her coolly, my smile icy. "Nola Cheng, this account of yours is just beginning." On the eve of the cultural performance, I was targeted. They said someone had reported me for unclear class background, singing revolutionary songs while secretly promoting capitalism, and accused me of joining the troupe through improper means, corrupting the purity of the cultural troupe. This time, it wasn't just whispers behind my back. It was an official public denouncement. I stood in front of the office building, surrounded by a group of Red Guards. "Take him away, investigate his identity, background, and ideological issues thoroughly." Before I could even argue, two youths wearing armbands had already grabbed my arms, their eyes filled with a chilling sense of righteousness. The deputy team leader rushed out and stopped them. On what grounds are you taking him? Do you have any investigation conclusions, any official documents? The leader sneered. You must have mistaken your position. If you interfere again, we'll report you along with them. My heart turned cold. At the end of the corridor, the sharp click-clack of high heels broke the silence. Everyone turned their heads. A woman in a dark green woolen overcoat and a military cap strode forward with steady steps, exuding an imposing aura. She stopped before me and spoke. I am Sun Manhua, former head of the cultural troupe. I can vouch for my daughter-in-law Lyra, her identity, background, and ideological stance. I know far more about these than any of you. She turned to the Red Guards. Her voice not loud but carrying an undeniable force. If you want to take her away, you'll have to go through me first. The two sides were at a stalemate. Zainshu arrived just in time, his stern gaze sweeping over the opposing side as he swiftly pulled me behind him. I am Zainshu, Chief of Staff of the 54th Regiment. Song Lyra's father is also a soldier, and she is my rightful fiancée. I vouch for her integrity with my military merits. Anyone who dares to slander her will face my full wrath. The air fell silent for a moment. The young men exchanged glances and eventually let me go with reluctance. Shu Manhua shielded me behind her, her gaze sharp. Anyone who dares to slander my daughter-in-law's innocence must be prepared to pay the price. I stared at her back, my fingertips cold, but my heart gradually warmed. Zainshu steadied me from the side, his voice low. Don't be afraid, no one dares to touch you. You have me now, and you have a home. The cultural performance proceeded as scheduled. Originally, Nola Cheng was set to close the show with a solo dance, but it was suddenly announced the program had been adjusted. She and I would perform a duet, Ballad of the River. I glanced at the program list and smirked coldly. She truly wouldn't give up. Zainshu pulled me aside backstage, visibly on the verge of anger. Is she trying to mess with you again? I'll go teach her. I held his hand and said, this time, let me handle it. The stage lights brightened, revealing her standing ahead of me in a vibrant blue costume, radiant and alluring. Behind her, I stood quietly in a plain, flowing dress. The music began, and she made her entrance first, her movements flamboyant and full of provocation, even deliberately bumping into me as I turned. Yet the next moment, I raised my hand to adjust my sleeve and began to dance lightly. My steps were graceful, my posture as steady as a pine. But my eyes concealed a blood feud from a past life. Nola Cheng's arrogance was gradually subdued with every move I made. As the dance ended, I executed a spinning turn, my sleeves fluttering down like snow, coming to a perfect stop right in front of her, just in time to steal her spotlight. The entire hall fell silent for a second before erupting into thunderous applause. The deputy director stood up excitedly. Now that's the presence of a leading lady. Nola Cheng turned pale, shooting me a furious glare. Backstage, Zainshu draped a coat over my shoulders, his eyes filled with unconcealed admiration. Lyra, tonight you nearly made my heart stop. I turned my head and smiled at him. Look at you, so easily impressed. He chuckled. You danced so beautifully. I almost couldn't resist the urge to rush on stage and carry you away, just so no one else could see you. I smiled and pushed him away, but he grabbed my hand in an instant. Don't avoid me. I know you love dancing. I'll accompany you in doing what you want to do. From now on, I want to be in the audience for every one of your performances. Nola Cheng ultimately ended up lifting a rock only to drop it on her own foot. She privately altered the team's notices, maliciously reported others, and even sabotaged performances on stage, layer by layer. It was all orchestrated by her. What's even more terrifying is that the background connections she used were actually internal resources from the railway branch office borrowed by Orion G. The team was in a state of panic, and several leaders were furious. That day, Orion G was summoned for a talk with the disciplinary committee. When he came out, his face was livid, and he directly dragged Nola Cheng into the jeep, driving her all the way back to her rural hometown. Nola Cheng clung desperately to his arm. You said you liked me, you said you hated Lyra, you said I was the white moonlight in your heart, but he gave her a cold glance. That was me being blind. When the news arrived, I was practicing dance, and Zainshu stood at the door of the rehearsal hall, handing me a bottle of warm water. I took it over. Does Orion G know everything? Zane Shu nodded, looking at me somewhat unnaturally. He's been disciplined, with his transfer pending. You wouldn't soften your heart, would you? I tilted my head back to finish that sip of water and smiled. No, that night, on my way back to the dormitory, I was stopped by someone. It's Orion G. The person who once brought me to death in humiliation now stands in the twilight, his eyes filled with unconcealed regret. Lyra, I was wrong. I've realized my true feelings. The one I've always loved most is you. I let out a cold laugh, gazing at him calmly. Orion G. Didn't I say I never wanted to see you again? His voice was tense. Whatever the Shu family can give you, I can give you too. If you want to join the cultural troupe, seek wealth and glory, or stand at the center of the stage, I can fight for all of it for you. I remained silent. Familiar footsteps approached from behind. Zane Shu walked to my side, casually took my hand, and sneered at Orion G. Not only can I give her what she wants, but I'll also protect her with my life. I'm going to marry Zane Shu. The old Western-style house of the Shu family was adorned with red lanterns, the courtyard laid with a red carpet, and the coming and going guests were all figures from the military and municipal offices. The wedding banquet was spread across 2 floors, with Father Shu personally calling his old comrades and regimental leaders to invite them. I was wearing a light red long dress modified from a cheongsam. Just as I came downstairs, I heard someone whisper in admiration. Oh my, isn't that Shan Lyra, the new talent from the cultural troupe, so beautiful? Mother Shu bustled about while holding my hand, grinning from ear to ear. From today onward, you're our Shu family's child. If anyone dares to bully you, I'll be the first to refuse. I smiled at her, though my eyes grew slightly warm. In my past life, my parents forced me into the G family, stepping straight into hell. In this life, I chose Zane Shu myself. It was like the first light of dawn breaking through. Suddenly, a commotion arose from the corner. I turned my head and saw Orion G standing at the door, covered in dust and looking weary. The guests whispered, "Isn't he the railway official who was suspended? What's he doing here?" When Orion G saw me, there was unmistakable shock and heartbreak in his eyes. I lifted my chin and turned to walk straight toward him. He whispered, "Lyra, are you really going to marry him? Don't you know? I've been transferred back to the city. I've done so much for you." "I know," I interrupted, "but it's too late for everything now." He suddenly grabbed my hand. "He's not worthy of you. He's just relying on his family." Zane Shu emerged from the crowd of guests, dressed in a crisp military uniform, his expression composed. He reached out, shielding me directly behind him, his tone turning firm and leaving no room for argument. "Whether I'm worthy or not is for my wife to decide. You have no right to speak on it. If you're here today to celebrate, the Shu family welcomes you. But if you're here to cause trouble, please leave. On such a joyous occasion, don't force me to slap you." Orion G clenched his fists, his face pale as he stared at me. "Lyra, are you really not going to turn back?" I looked at him, enunciating each word clearly. "Orion G, I've walked the path of turning back once. It was a sea of blood." The next second, Zane Shu grasped my fingers and slowly drew them into the crook of his arm. Side by side, we walked toward the crowd, leaving Orion G standing alone outside the bustle, as if he had never been there at all. The banquet lights were warm and bright, guests raising their glasses in loud toasts, the applause rising wave after wave. In this lifetime, I will never shed tears for the wrong person again. Epilogue. The happy life of Comrade Shun and Mr. Shu. My work at the cultural troupe was going smoothly. And life without Nola Cheng and Orion G was simply heavenly. That day, I had just finished a performance at the Army Corps when thunderous applause erupted backstage, with several young male members from other troops buzzing around me. "Comrade Shun was brilliant tonight. How about we go to the Victory Road Tea House later for some hot soy milk, a celebration?" Before I could respond, a calm yet firm voice cut in. "She's not going." Zane Shu had appeared at the doorway at some point. His military uniform impeccably pressed, his gaze heavy as it settled on me. For just that moment, my heartbeat skipped a beat. "She's coming home tonight and needs to sleep early." Everyone exchanged glances, and the male team member gave an awkward smile. "Comrade Shun, what's this?" My face flushed. And I was about to explain. Zainшу had already walked over, his tone low but leaving no room for argument. I'm her man, Zainšu, he spoke bluntly, making my face flush even redder. Just as I was about to pull my hand free from his grasp, he smoothly drew me into his embrace and smiled faintly, the legal kind. The crowd erupted in murmurs, someone teasing, "Comrade Shu, that jealousy of yours is loud and clear." Zainšu didn't get angry. Instead, he tilted his head to look at me, his tone softening. "Lyra, come home with me. I've made the red date and snow fungus soup you like." I kicked him, only to have him pull me into his arms in retaliation. His hand subtly caressing my waist, I gritted my teeth and tried to kick him again. He whispered in my ear, "Save the fuss for home. There are so many people watching. I took time off today just to see my wife dance and to bring you home. You're so busy, yet you still took leave." "Yeah, my boss said soldiers are human too. And if you have a wife, you should spoil her." I scolded him. "Zainšu, when did you become so shameless?" He leaned in close to my ear, his voice low and husky, tinged with a hint of laughter. "After marrying you, I've become shameless and hard-hearted. If anyone so much as glances at you, I want to transfer them to the border to feed the mosquitoes." My face burned at his words, and I struggled a couple of times but couldn't break free. That night when we returned to the Shu residence, the stove was blazing, and warm air rushed to meet us. I had just taken off my scarf when Zainšu followed me inside, swiftly locking the door behind him. "Why are you locking the door?" I glared at him. He unhurriedly took off his military overcoat, but his voice was hoarse with emotion. "My wife is so beautiful, I'm afraid someone might have their eyes on her." I rolled my eyes at him and was about to go wash my face when he suddenly grabbed me and pulled me into the bedroom. "I've already prepared the water, let me wipe your face for you." He had me sit on the edge of the bed, took a warm towel, carefully wrung it out, and with movements more meticulous than when tending to a wounded soldier, gently wiped my face. I turned my head away, blushing, as he cupped my chin, his gaze slowly sweeping across my face. "You look so beautiful when you dance," he said, "with so many people watching you from below. I just wanted to carry you away and hide you." I laughed. "You're that possessive. What do you think?" he replied. He spoke as he tossed the towel into the basin, then scooped me up and carried me straight to the bed. I gasped and pinched his arm. "Zainšu, don't be scared, I'll warm the bed for you." His breath brushed against the nape of my neck as he whispered soothingly, "You must be tired from dancing today. I won't tease you tonight, just hold you for a while." But even as he said this, his hands subtly tightened around my waist. Not allowing me to retreat an inch, I curled up and remained silent. He suddenly spoke softly. "Lyra, when I used to watch you dance, I thought you were like a fairy from heaven. I never imagined you would marry me. The day you truly married me, when I saw you walking towards me in your wedding dress, my heart was so overwhelmed, more nervous than when I went to the front lines. I was afraid you'd regret it, afraid that one day the dream would end and I'd find out you didn't love me." My heart ached, and I reached out to hug him, pressing against his chest. "Zainšu, I don't regret it at all." He chuckled softly, his voice hoarse yet tender. "You're not allowed to regret it." After a while, he hugged me again and murmured, "Even if you regret it, you'll have to spend your whole life with me. After all, you're my everything." I buried myself in his arms, feeling so heartbroken that I was at a loss for words. Suddenly, he lowered his head and pressed it against my forehead, saying solemnly, "Lyra, the proudest thing in my life is marrying you." After the performance that day, I had just changed my clothes backstage when Zainšu stopped me at the door. He stood straight in his military uniform, holding that letter in his hand, his face as dark as storm clouds. "What is this?" His voice was hoarse, as if struggling to restrain himself. I blinked. "A letter from a comrade, asking about rehearsal arrangements." He stared at me for 2 seconds, then stepped closer, pressing me against the wall. The letter said, "If I have the chance, I'd love to choreograph a dance for you. Didn't you see that?" I paused, then laughed. "You're jealous over a polite remark." "I'm not jealous, I'm annoyed." His thin lips brushed against your ear. "You're my wife. Anyone who dares to fantasize about you, I'll transfer them to the frontier to farm." I couldn't help but laugh, shoving him lightly. "Comrade Shu, since when did you become so unreasonable?" He remained unmoved. lowered his head to kiss me, his thin lips brushing the corner of my mouth. What's there to reason about? Bringing you home means spoiling, protecting, and keeping you. For a lifetime. Blushing, I shoved the letter into his hand. Then take it and burn it. All right. His eyes flickered slightly, the corner of his mouth lifting as he tucked the letter into his pocket, looking as triumphant as if he'd won a trophy. Fine. From now on, no one but me gets to write you letters. 3 years later. I was backstage at the cultural troupe, watching the man on stage holding a child while telling a story. Zane Shu, wearing an armor green shirt, held our 1-year-old daughter in his arms as she sweetly tried to mimic his words. While removing my makeup, I couldn't help but laugh. He noticed my gaze, turned his head to look at me, his eyes and brows softening with tenderness. Comrade Shen, come home early tonight too. Our little soldier and I will be waiting for you. Our daughter babbled about being afraid of the dark. Holding our daughter on the back of his bicycle, he turned to look at me. Don't be afraid, I'll walk this road with you both for a lifetime. The streetlights stretch our shadows. At last I understand. All the suffering and rebirth in this life were meant to lead me to stand beside him at this very moment.